Hello and welcome to Football 301. I am your host, Nate Tice. Instead of just a normal recap today, we are going to be checking in since it's the 1/3 checkpoint for the football season. We're going to be doing some power rankings today. Not 1 through 32, just 1 through 10, keeping it in the top 10, nice and tidy top 10. I don't think the producers want to edit a 3.5-hour podcast on a Tuesday in the middle of the football season. So we'll be doing some power rankings. We'll be doing some trade news because receivers are getting traded left and right. And thank God we pushed back this recording about 15 minutes because I was a little lazy with getting ready today because the trades happened in that time span. So I'm very happy about that. But to help me go over that news is Mr. Harmon, Mr. Matt Harmon, I should say, Mr. Matt Harmon, BVB. I should say. How you doing today, Matt? Thank you for joining me.
I'm doing good, man. Yeah, 15 minutes. Wish it was 15 more minutes. Maybe I could have done a little Amari Cooper charting, but because that literally just happened right as we were about to hop on here. But man, yeah, excited to break this all down today. Obviously, get to the power rankings too, because I can't wait to hear what your methodology was. But man, we have so much to dive into.
Yeah, the power rankings was perfect. It was I like doing checking in after week 6. You know, we have 18 weeks now, so it's 1/3. I like just getting what people are thinking. Maybe my top 2 is a little disappointing because of just how it played out, but I'll get to that in a minute. But I think it's fun to just go like, oh, we're not just looking at records here. What are the vibes? Are there injuries coming up? You know, records are everything and aren't everything, I think, early in the season. Sorry, Mr. Bill Parcells. I know he says that that's the only stat that counts, but I do think it's going to be a lot of fun to hear kind of how you are thinking about some of these teams. But before we do that, some interesting trades, some fun ones. One we've kind of speculated for a while, but one that kind of sort of came out of left field. And like you said, literally as we were about to click record, it happened. And I thought you guys were just saying it. I was like, oh, that's great. And that's Amari Cooper traded to the Buffalo Bills. It's a pick swap that includes Cleveland getting a 3rd-round pick from Tom Pelissero. Had the breaking news. All right, Matt, what do you think about this? Amari Cooper, who you could tell is not really feeling it in Cleveland the last few weeks, ever since Joe Flacco was no longer throwing him the ball every single down. What do you think about this? I think it's really, really interesting. I think it's fun.
Oh, I think it's super fun, and I think it makes so much sense for Buffalo because I've been saying for weeks now on this show, any other show that I'm on, that I think Buffalo has the worst outside wide receiver play in the NFL, or at least they're up there, and especially from a separation standpoint. Keon Coleman is not ready to be that guy. Matt Collins is not that guy. I mean, Matt Collins, man, is still running 75% of the routes.
He catches the touchdown after I called him Robin Lopez. I was like, you gotta be kidding me, man.
I mean, he catches a touchdown right after Josh Allen misses Curtis Samuel on a touchdown. That felt like a personal attack on me. Okay, so I took that personally, Buffalo. But yeah, man, I mean, these guys I think they're okay ancillary players. I've always said I would love to see Keon Coleman deployed more as a slot. Certainly just, how about get him off the line of scrimmage? How about just not make him, like, I thought Matt Collins would be their sacrificial X receiver, and it's really Keon Coleman's like their sacrificial X receiver. I think there's just much better ways to deploy him. And Amari Cooper's tough this year, man, because I don't think he's had a great season to start the year, but how much of that is because he's just, like you said, not feeling it? He does have like a 10% drop rate on the year, depending on which source you're looking at. But also, fantasy points data, those guys do a great job like charting and data and stuff like that. They have a stat, uncatchable air yards due to inaccurate passes.
Okay.
Because there's obviously air yards, there's uncatchable air yards, but this is specifically inaccurate throws, that made them uncatchable air yards. 52.1% of Amari Cooper's 676 air yards on the season have been uncatchable due to inaccate passes.
52?
Over half!
I thought you were going to say like 28, 31, somewhere around there, and I thought that would be high. 52!
352 air yards just not on the table. So it's so hard to look at anything he's done from a production standpoint and assign that to the player. And Cooper's an interesting guy because I think at different points in his career, back in Dallas especially, I thought he was a little bit overrated just because he was kind of more of a boom bust player. Anytime people would be like, oh, Amari Cooper, one of the best route runners in the league. He's a route technician. It's like, yeah, sometimes. And then other times I thought it would kind of come and go. And that's the reason he'd have these big games and slower games. Sometimes that's not always the case. Boom bust production doesn't always result in it's not the wide receiver's fault. With Cooper, I think sometimes it was, but then not this year, but the previous 2 years in Cleveland, I thought he's played the best football in his career as the true X receiver on that team, running these in-breaking vertical routes on play action. We know the Bills, and you've talked about this a lot, want to be a ground and pound physical run team. They got a great game out of Ray Davis last night. Yeah. Really interested to see how he mixes in here. So Cooper becoming that X receiver for this team and running those in-breaking routes potentially on play action plays, I just think it makes so much sense from an addition standpoint. Of course, I don't think 52% of his air yards will be uncatchable due to inaccurate throws because of Josh Allen.
He's Amari Cooper because that was his rep. He was a highly touted prospect and going into college and then going into the NFL. I was around him in Oakland. Is that everyone wants him to be the route runner guy, and he's best vertically and intermediate. And that's where when he gets to kind of move around a little bit, he can do X, which is kind of nice about him is that he can do a few things, like line up in a few spots, but attacking vertically is kind of more what it is, not the route running king, footwork king stuff. Who needs that right now? The Buffalo Bills. I like Amari a lot with this other group of receivers because him and Khalil Shakir could do some cool stuff together because they could both be inside, they could be outside, they could do some stuff. Like you said, you're talking about the bully stuff, the bully spread. I think is the term. I don't remember if it was spread bully or bully spread, but one of them works. And I think that is where this is nice. That it gives it some breathing room. That offense works even better when the safeties are 16 yards, not 12 yards, 10 yards, and just now those gains become 7 yards as opposed to 3. And I'm glad you mentioned Ray Davis, by the way, because that's how I envisioned this run game with Ray Davis. And it was like, oh, that's exactly what I pictured. Oh, this is great. This is exactly what we need. So now you got the stay on schedule guy. You have James Cook once he gets back, explosive plays with that. And I think has improved as a runner a little bit, being more disciplined. And then now you got explosive pass catcher. Spoilers, I had the Bills in my top 10, but it's still, even right now, I might be bumping them up because this makes me a little bit. This is exactly what they needed. I didn't like Amari Cooper with some teams, but I love him with the Bills. This is what they needed. He needs to get there. Glad he brought down catchable stuff because I think Amari has always been like that. He's a smart player and he's kind of one of those guys. He knows when things aren't right. And he's not the guy that kind of goes all right, I'm going to overcome this. He's like, I don't know. I'm not really feeling it. He's going to feel it with Josh Allen ripping them throws and ripping those intermediate balls. And this is just going to give this offense some breathing room. A team that I feel pretty good about with the Bills right now, better than maybe I expected a couple of weeks ago. Yeah, I really like this for them. Cleveland needed to do it because they need stuff. You got right now. You're just trying to figure out ways to refill your cupboard after what you have done the last couple of years. So
rookie contracts are going to be important at some point on this team based on where things are trending.
Yes, they are, and they need these picks. They need to hit on some of these picks because that's a thing too. The last few years with the Browns, I get it. You don't have first rounders, but still need some guys. So really like this. I don't do trade grades, but I mean, I feel like this is an A for the Bills, and really, I feel good about it for the Browns as well. So yeah.
Browns have some other interesting receivers in that room too. I mean, if you look at any receiver efficiency metric right now, they all look terrible. There are 137 players in the list that I have that qualify for this stat on True Media, just like EPA or team success rate as a route runner right now. That's not like the stuff I chart or anything like that. It's just, efficiency when these guys are on the field. 137 players. The Browns have the 126th, 129th, 133rd, and 137th player. But I still feel like those guys like Judy and Elijah Moore and Cedric Tillman are, I'm not as high as I was on Elijah Moore coming out, and Cedric Tillman hasn't really done much. And, Judy, obviously I've always been a little lower than consensus on Judy, but they're at least interesting. So we'll see what happens.
They're all playable players,
Totally.
Yeah. But who knows with Cleveland right now, but cool for the Bills. We'll talk about more in a sec. The other trade, and this is who the Bills played last night in Monday Night Football. That was the Jets, who I think wanted to do a little double whammy and get that win, and then the next day make the trade for Davante Adams, which is something that I think we've all been expecting for a little bit. Derek Carr goes down with an injury. That might have changed a little some things. I don't know. Just speculating. But, kind of words were getting out there. But Davante Adams going to the Jets. Matt, what do you think about this? What do you think about the impact it has on Garrett Wilson? Mike Williams might be on the block, it seems like. So how do you feel about this trade going to the Jets?
Oh yeah, it's so beyond over for Mike Williams as a New York Jet.
Yeah.
Even before the last play of the game, which probably wasn't really Mike Williams' fault. But
you think Aaron Rodgers said that accidentally, or do you think he was trying to send a message that I've never heard a quarterback say red line more. So red line is like on practice fields, there's a mark, there's a literal red line 3 yards from the sideline, and it's like a landmark. So that's what he was talking about, red line. And it was just like, oh, you're saying this for a reason. Like, get to your landmark. Yeah, botch play. But anyway, sorry to cut you off because
Davante Adams will be on the red line.
On the red line.
Sure.
Yes, he will. Yeah. He knows where his bread is buttered, and that's through number 8 now instead of number 12.
100%. And like I've said a lot that I don't think the Jets offense is a Davante Adams away from salvation. You know, I don't think that he's going to come in there and fix all of their problems. They have a lot of other issues. Most notably, I mean, Aaron Rodgers Tyron Smith looked like he was 100 years old in this game on Monday night. And, you know, Rodgers is getting hit on the blind side. He's getting hit all over the place. You just wonder how long that can hold up. Obviously, I think the line, even if they did all the right things and checked all the right boxes. And you've mentioned that some of this is a protection plan issue and some of this is a Rodgers issue too. But, you know, I just don't think that offensive line is nearly as good as the skill position group is. And that's kind of always the case in New York. But that nevertheless, like they're better now with Davante Adams in the mix here. I did, since before we did this show, start charting some Davante Adams for reception perception. And like, you know, you could maybe say he's a little bit less of a player than he was at his peak. He's in his 30s. That's kind of understandable. I don't think he's quite as explosive as he was in that like true Davante Adams, I am the best receiver in the NFL. But again, we're talking about a guy that in reception perception has been like a 99th percentile finisher in success rate versus man and press. If he's down to like the 90th or 88th percentile, something like that, I know, what a bummer. It's certainly better than what they've been dealing with there in New York. Like I said, with Mike Williams, you know, Williams was a total reclamation project, man. I think taking Adams and putting him in that X receiver position is going to be a huge upgrade just because of the way this offense wants to play too. We've talked about all the static ISO routes, like getting a guy who is the route runner, who is the technician that Amari Cooper is not in that conversation we had. Like, I think it's going to be a big upgrade for this offense in general. Plus, like with the way they've used Garrett Wilson, it's been a lot of like off ball stuff. It's been a lot of in the slot, in motion. It'll be nice when those can actually turn into downfield routes now, as opposed to just the constant little Mickey Mouse not Mickey Mouse, but like the quick hitting, quick game
inside
type stuff that Rodgers wants to do. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like Adams can do that stuff from the X receiver spot, allowing them to work off more like high-low concepts with Garrett Wilson. So, you know, obviously he's not going to get as many targets as he was before there, but I think the efficiency of those looks could potentially go up.
If you saw how many times Allen Lazard is getting peppered on ISO ball stuff, that's not a winning formula. Allen Lazard now gets to be the dirty role player, which is what he's good at. He's the underneath safety blanket, and like he's like an F tight end. He's like a second tight end. That's really his role. And you could just feel it, like, because teams are trying to focus on Garrett Wilson and because he has to be more of a move around slot guy, that you can see the limitations coming. Like Rodgers wants to do what he wants to do. And then I think he even realized, like, oh man, this isn't the Packers where every receiver is over 195 pounds. And I could just, the bullet he threw into the end zone to Garrett Wilson that Taylor Rapp did a great job breaking up. That one felt like a lot to me where Rodgers like, wish I had a bigger body there. Like, and nothing against Garrett Wilson. It's just the body type that he prefers. He's going to let his guys take chances. That's why he probably was like, hey, Mike Williams would be a good one here. That's why he likes Lazard. That's why he loved Jordy Nelson. He likes those bigger guys because he's going to give them chances. Still really like Garrett Wilson. But Adams at the second half of the Ravens game, when the Raiders came back, there was a lot of juice there. There was some sideline catches, and I was like, okay, yeah, you still have some talent there. But like you said, it might be more of a 90th percentile Davante Adams, which is still a very good player. I think he's going to become the one here because of the trust, because of being the X. And now Wilson is more the move around auxiliary target guy. Like you said, though, the issues are still the same, which is the line. And if you want to attack deeper, that's going to be some issues with it. I saw some more layers with this offense in the first couple drives, which was good under Downing and stuff, but then it kind of reverted back more to the same, which is always going to be what Aaron Rodgers prefers. So he prefers Davante Adams. That's one thing I could easily see. I was looking up Garrett Wilson. Okay, so Garrett Wilson's 28% of his targets have come from the slot, according to Next Gen Stats. I think that bumps up a little bit. And I think it's going to just really kind of create a fun two-man game. We'll see kind of what happens from there. But the Jets send a conditional third-round pick. That can be a second if they make the AFC Championship game, or
he has to be on the active
team
roster for the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl. So obviously he has to be healthy too. And yeah, then he could be a first or second team AP All Pro. I don't know if you have the Jets in your top 10. I don't have the Jets in my top 10.
Not.
This did not move them into my top 10. I don't necessarily think they're going to be in the AFC Championship game or the Super Bowl, but we'll see. Yeah, certainly this would have been a much more like exciting move if they had won that damn game last night, because then it's like, okay, yeah, not only did we win, big divisional win, they'd be first in the AFC East, I believe, if they won that game. And then we got Davante Adams coming in here. This feels a little bit more like now kind of tipping on the desperation side, which if you're Joe Douglas, like, yeah, buddy, you're on the last year of your contract. Send them picks out. Who gives a shit? I'm not going to be here for these. There's a Magic Johnson. I'm not going to be here. Like if this pick doesn't work out. So yeah, you might as well do it if you're the Jets, but we'll see. I agree with you. Like I think that Adams becomes the one, but man, it will definitely help, I think, to have a veteran influence on Garrett Wilson, because he needs I love Garrett Wilson's game. I think he's a great separator.
Yeah.
Is he like a great route runner in terms of being where he's supposed to be all the time?
His details are off. Yes.
His details are, we've talked about this. He's a little bit loosey-goosey with the details, especially shoot, that touchdown he caught. Troy Aikman even said, I don't know why he left his feet to begin with. That was one of those examples. He's had a few of those plays this year. Maybe Adams' influence can kind of help him tighten those things up, because he has the potential to be an elite receiver in the league. He's not there yet, but a lot of that ball winner stuff, a lot of the sideline awareness, things like that. So I feel like a level of professionalism across this entire offense, Adams will bring that, even if he is, 90th percentile Davante Adams.
I like that. And also the word came out that Hassan Reddick, if he gets traded to an NFC team, the Jets are sacrificing a 2026 second round pick. So
oh my God.
Everything going in New York. Everything's happening in New York. Everything. Fired a coach, losing London. Yeah, we got the Reddick stuff. And then Josh DeBow from AP had a fun tweet about the Raiders. In the last 20 seasons, the Raiders have traded first round picks for Randy Moss, Richard Seymour, Carson Palmer, and Davante Adams, and never made the playoffs once with any of those players.
I don't know if you want to touch on the Raiders here real quick. Definitely not in my top 10.
No, they are not.
Why didn't you just do this in the offseason?
I know.
If you're the Raiders, why didn't you had months and months and months in the offseason to get this done? Can someone Michael Scott explain to me I'm 5? What is the plan with the Las Vegas Raiders?
I don't know. I don't think they know. I think some of it's owner driven. And, probably some of that. But I know that as soon as you go, Gardner Minshew and Aiden O'Connell are our guys, that's okay, we got to start looking at who we can get rid of, because this is not a contending team or a championship level team or a team that's even I like the defense and I like a lot of the players, actually. Bowers, Max Crosby, of course, but Christian Wilkins getting hurt. It's just kind of all right, what are you? I totally agree. What is the plan? But we'll find out. It's not like it's not like it's going great there either. Which leads us to this is great segueing. It's not even a word. Leads us to now who the Raiders just played, the Steelers, who now announced that they might be going with Russell Wilson. Tom Pelissero again. Steelers plan to give Russell Wilson first team reps in practice this week, putting in line to make his season debut Sunday night against the Jets. This is all just all coming together here. Pittsburgh is 4-2 with Justin Fields, yada yada, but Wilson's been nursing a calf injury. Mike Tomlin's been kind of really going he'll play sometime, but we don't know. And now they win the game. Fields is really the explosive element of the offense. He's still just iffy throwing the ball, but his running ability is still one of the explosive elements of this offense. But they might go with Russell Wilson. So what do you think about that? Russell Wilson as potentially the Steelers starting quarterback.
I don't know, man.
That's it. That's a big sigh for me too. I know.
I know
4-2, by the way.
They are. I know, that's right. They're 4-2, and it's just I have this general shrug about their quarterback situation. The one thing I will say is that I think there's a chance this might not be the last we've seen of Justin Fields. And this is kind of how I expected this quarterback situation to go. I think this got billed during the offseason by some big media and stuff like that is like, wow, what a great solution for the Steelers in the wake of Kenny Pickett busting out. It's like, well, they didn't spend a lot of resources to find these two guys, and they both are big names that somehow like are, they're big clicking headlines and things like that. But these are two guys that were unceremoniously dumped by their previous teams. And like, I don't think either team, even if the Broncos offense is not that great under Bo Nix, and even if there were some struggles at times with Caleb Williams and the Bears, I don't think any serious person has ever looked back at like, yeah, man, what we should have kept that other guy around. I think these are two below average quarterbacks. They're two probably guys who aren't starting quarterbacks in the league. So I think there's a chance they kind of ping pong back and forth all year and somehow still fall ass backwards into the playoffs, because that's what the Steelers do. And again, they are 4-2 right now, so I don't want to sound all doom and gloom, but I'm interested just in how this changes the offense, because the run game has been really poor this year. They're coming off their best rushing, which makes no sense.
Najee Harris.
Of course. Yeah. Like 13 carries for over 100 yards, explosive runs left and right against that Raiders team that we just talked about. Maybe not such a good sign over there, but Zach Frazier, their star rookie center, who's just been unbelievable on film so far. He, got banged up, but it sounds like he avoided a serious injury. So I'm still kind of like, will this run game find itself? Just the true running back runs. Jaylen Warren, is he going to get healthier? And then really Russell Wilson, kind of back to that conversation of how does he fit in Arthur Smith's offense? Because I think Smith has done, everybody hates Arthur Smith, but I think he's done a pretty good job leaning into what Justin Fields does well. That's just a pretty limited menu. The problem is it's also a limited and rather similar menu with Russell Wilson. And there's not a lot of playmakers here to speak of. George Pickens is the number one receiver, and he's, right after I start saying like, oh man, he's playing the best football of his career, he starts packing it in from an effort perspective and can't make contested catches anymore. So I don't really know if this moves the needle for the Steelers one way or another.
That's where I'm at. Fields and Wilson are very similar in their quality and some strengths and some weaknesses too. And that's why, Russ is more accurate, and I want to see some stuff of creation, because that's what Fields has been doing really well. He's been throwing left really well. And also just like you mentioned the Arthur Smith designs, his rushing touchdown was a great design. It was a true naked keeper, which is just, there was no pass routes on it. And it was just a fake toss that, I love the design. It looked like a sixth grade offense where you just fake the toss and have the quarterback keep it. But it's great because Fields could actually win on that. And that's where my argument always was, where if these guys have the same qualities and the same negatives, I'd rather have the guy that's younger, bigger, and more explosive at this, stage of his career. So I'd like to see it, how Wilson looks, but it's just, I don't know. It doesn't really fire me up in any way, shape, or form. I was kind of just more curious about how the Fields experiment kept evolving. And I wanted to see, like, maybe they added layers, maybe he had more confidence. The pass game has still been iffy, but it's not like the pass catchers or anything, right? A lot of Calvin Austin, a lot of Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, iffy guys. So, just kind of a shrug at this, but we'll see. I do think there are signs of decency, but who knows with the Steelers team? Like you said, they're going to make the playoffs probably. So who cares playing quarterback? This is just what they do apparently.
It's unbelievable.
I know, right? Tomlin, man, he's good at his job. But we are going to take a quick break, and then we are going to come back to start our power rankings. Our top 10, we're going to do teams 10 through 6. See you guys in a minute. It's power rankings time. That's the gimmick. You guys know what power rankings are. It's how we feel about these teams, how we stack them up. Hopefully not just by record, hopefully not just by point differential. That's why I'm a little disappointed in some of my stuff. But as we look at this, as I'm going to have Matt first list off his teams 10 through 6, and then I'm going to do the same, and then we're going to go from there. We're going to see where we overlap, where we have some differences. One of these teams in my 10 through 6, I might be adjusting, so that's why I'm going to have Matt go first. But Matt, start us off. Power rankings 10 through 6, week after week 6 of the NFL season. What do you have for us?
Yeah, I hate that you're making me go first, and that we're doing the back half, because that's the half I was the least confident in. Definitely curious as to
guide people along. Gotta get make them listen to the whole show to get to 5 through 1.
Right, the layup teams, in my opinion, I think 5 through 1 was super easy, but these 10 through 6 a little difficult. I went Bears at 10.
Okay.
Bucks at 9. Bills were at 8 for me. I think I could see myself maybe bumping them up of at least one, maybe two of the teams at 7 and 6, which were the Green Bay Packers and the San Francisco 49ers.
Wow, we have some overlap here. Okay, so you went Bears, Bucks, the Bills maybe popping up there, and then 49ers, and then I went
Packers, 49ers, yeah.
Oh, Packers, 49ers, thank you. Okay, so I went Falcons at 10. Yeah, I'll talk about it. Bears at 9. So we have that. I had the Bills as 8 also, but I have the same line of thinking that I might move them up to 6. Like if I really had to think about this, I have the 49ers at 7, and then I have the Texans at 6.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I'll talk about that. All right, let's start with let's start with the Bears first, because I have them at 9. You have them at 10. You're liking what you're seeing with the Bears right now?
Yeah, man. I mean, I think Caleb Williams has gotten better every single week. You've brought this point up a lot, and I've talked about it on other shows too, giving you credit for this, that you can see just how much they've put on Caleb Williams' shoulders from a pre-snap and operations perspective in that offense, which it's so funny. We're so reactionary, Nate, on the outside, and maybe I'm giving the Bears too much credit by saying like they're being a little bit like forward thinking with this, but we do this in the first 2 weeks season. Like, oh man, why are they putting all that on Caleb Williams? Like, why don't they just make his life easier? Well, because then you get to week 6 and you see, oh man, now the game has started to slow down. You're starting to see the arm talent and the accuracy and the placement of this guy, and he's already handling all of this. Like, this is who gives a shit if his first 2 games are rocky and a little shaky because he's handling so much and he's a rookie? This is not, I know it's not about winning first take, it's not about like, oh, did the Bears make a mistake not taking Jaden Daniels or whatever. Yeah, it's like, this is a long ride with this guy's career. So, and that's how he looked against week 6, albeit against the terrible Jaguars teams. Like, yeah, I know you have forbidden talk of the Jaguars, which is totally fine.
I should have added that caveat, by the way, and I realized I didn't after the show. I was like, I talked about all the rookie quarterbacks, but Caleb Williams, the number 1 pick, who I really like because they played the Jags. And I was like, I'm not talking about any team the Jags are involved with. So sorry, Bears fans. I should have addressed that. Writing about Caleb Williams and Jane Daniels next week, though. So just
delayed gratification, because we get to talk about it right now, and we get to talk about it in a much more positive sense because he just thumped that terrible Jaguars team that's packing it in, man. So look, again, easy matchup, but that's one of those situations where I think you can divorce whatever's going on with Jacksonville with just some of the real A+ throws he made in that game. And then you start to see like, okay, the offensive line is settling in. They're using DeAndre Swift on screens and perimeter runs, which makes a hell of a lot more sense. They've kind of cut the fat in the offense, like the Gerald Everett and DeAndre Carter plays. They're just focused on the main dudes, who are all really good players at this point in specific roles. And that's just the offense. The defense continues to, I think, show itself to be a top 5 unit in the NFL. So honestly, I think by the end of the year, 9-10 could be conservative for this Chicago Bears team.
I thought about moving them up even higher, but then, you looked at a couple of other teams and I was like, oh, okay, it's hard to argue against them. But the defense first is, I was high on them going into the year, and they have done nothing to make me go like, yeah, I was a little too high. They are exactly what I pictured. They make it real tough on teams because of they can stop the run decently, but they make it really hard to throw the ball on them because the linebackers are all good. They're all playing really well. And then they just got a lot of just good players on the back end that play sound, and they can vary it up too, which is that's what they have, because they have smart players too, along with being good. You don't want just smart players isn't enough. Like our Wisconsin teams had a lot of just smart players. And then when we played in Oregon, that wasn't as fun when you're going against a team like that. But this team is smart and fast and good, and it can get after the passer. They can throw some cool blitzes in there. And then, like you said, with the offense, they've had a little easy slate the last few weeks. But again, you have to do it. Like, you can say a team goes against a bad defense or a bad offense, but you still have to show that they're bad. Like, you still have to score points and still have to move the ball. And it's just like you said, it's slowing down. The fact that they put so much on him is really, really cool, because that you don't see that a lot. You see some stuff and managing checks and kills, but not every play. I think the Bears have one of the highest no huddle rates in the NFL, because Caleb can, and it's not just a simple play. Caleb is truly doing a hanging huddle, which is They go up to the line, they see what the defense is in, and he's calling plays off, drawing them up basically. Not really, but just actually verbalizing, going, hey, we're going to run this, we're going to run this. You don't see rookie quarterbacks do that. That is just a different kind of thing than you see with other teams or other young guys. And then you see the arm talent. Also, the early woes, I would say, maybe especially like the Texans game and, where he gets caught with some picks. He got caught with a pick in this game. These young guys, especially the ones that have confidence. I don't think anyone has ever been like Caleb Williams is not confident. I mean, it's palpable when you watch him that sometimes failing is the best way for them to learn. Like sometimes trying something and losing or trying something and getting dinged on it is how they go, okay, can't do that again. Or, okay, next time I'm going to do this, and seeing themselves do that. The physical element was never the issue with Caleb. I mean, him spinning the ball, he has such a strong arm and he's accurate and his throwing angles are great. The creation stuff is great. Just that mental side is so cool to see it pre-snap and now post-snap. You can see that calmness just trickling over. So I like you said, how you wrap that up. It's like this team's ascending right now. This whole division is just stacked. I don't want to spoil anything too much, but it's a very, very stacked division. I'll say difference here. And
well, before we move off the Bears, because I know that like methodology wise, I tried to not get this like, I tried to not take into account like how many wins they're going to get in the future. This is a little bit more of like a holistic thing as opposed to like trying to nail down the exact teams. But you mentioned like they have, beat up on some lesser teams. They come out of the bye and they get Washington, which good team, but bad defense. Arizona week 9, the Patriots in week 10. So it's like they could keep this thing rolling here once they get out of the bye too.
Oh, no, that's great. It's very fun team. I enjoyed watching it. I'm glad you also brought up Waldron's cutting some fat out. That's helped so much because it's just like stop doing that with that guy. Stop doing that with that guy. Okay, now it works. We had a difference at my 10 spot, your 9 spot, essentially the same. Different NFC South teams. I will admit that the Bucs were probably the first team out if we're doing bracketology. They were the first team out, and the Falcons were the last team in for me. But I'll start with you with the Bucs. You watched that Saints game, and you're just like, this was entertaining. I compared it to a Jackass skit that game because that's what it felt like. But yeah, how you feeling about the Bucs right now as your number 9 team?
Yeah, if Bucks were one of my last teams in, I think Falcons and Commanders, spoiler alert, I don't have the Commanders as a top 5 team. They were one of my last teams off too. It's just so hard because I don't feel great about the defense, but feel so good about what we're seeing on the offensive side of the ball. So Falcons and Commanders, I think were my 2 hardest cuts maybe. I think and it's funny because obviously I think what people will say is, hey, idiot, did you miss Thursday Night Football when the Falcons beat the Bucks? I think, but that's not what this is about. This is about the long term. Although, I don't know about you, Nate, but when I used to like argue with my friends in college after a few beers, I would definitely use the transitive property, right? Like, okay, well, that team beat this team. Well, that means they're better than this team. My team did all that. So I'm trying to evolve here. I've been out of college for quite some time now. I'm trying to evolve a little bit. Holistic,
which I was very proud. Like, yeah, that's exactly the right word for this. So that was perfect.
And then I'm bringing up the transitive property. So, I'm not maybe not that smart. Still a meathead somewhere at heart. But yeah, no, with the Bucks, I just think I feel so good about the overall pace and the way the offense operates. Man, there might not be a player I've done more of a 180 in the past 2 years than Baker Mayfield, because I just thought his career was like DOA after the Panthers stint. I think a lot of that maybe had to do with Matt Rule and just the overall stink of the franchise at this point. But man, I was about as down as you could be on anybody with Baker Mayfield then, but I just think he's played so well this year. I know he had the 3 first half interceptions. Not all of those were his fault, but he just has such a good, I think, control of that offense. And he feels so in tune and just dialed in with what the offense wants to be. I've talked about it a lot, but the receiver usage in that offense is really good. Dude, my guy Sterling Shepard getting it going in this offense too, like playing a legit role in the whatever year it is of his career after about 5 devastating injuries. The fact now that we've got Sean Tucker and Bucky Irving giving them a real like pop in the run game. I think it'll be like, thank you for your service, Rachaad White. We will throw you some passes here and there, but this could be like a legit running game now at this point. That's exciting to see. The defense the 2 things that give me pause about the Bucks is, 1, the defense. They're getting healthier in the secondary. That should help things, but I still think when Todd Bowles isn't just going against a rookie quarterback who he can blitz into oblivion. I do kind of have, some questions about the ceiling of that defense overall. And the second thing is the Falcons, not to just credit your argument here, but they're a team that I think could continue to rise. Whereas, like, I think I know what the Bucs are, and I feel really good about that ceiling floor combination. If the Falcons do continue to progress, I think that would hold me up from kind of the decision between those two teams. I actually just had a conversation with Drake London. That's going to be on my show tomorrow on the fantasy show. By the way, Nate, I asked him what is the thing about wide receiver play that people don't discuss enough on the outside. Would you like to take one guess as to what he talked about?
Blocking?
That is exactly what he said. He said, "Hey,
My
man,
guy.
he said, you got to block in the run game, man. No block, no rock. Like if you're not willing to do that, you will not play all the, like."
He can say it because he proves it.
Exactly.
You could tell he's a believer in that. So yeah, he can say it.
The overall vibe just I got from him though is that this team does feel really good about itself and the trajectory of where they know they have higher to climb there. So if they do meet that potential, I definitely think they could be the better team in the long run. But just from what I've seen right now, whole body of work, I do feel a little bit better about Tampa.
Yeah, you kind of argue both sides for how I went through with the Bucs, where I do like where this offense is. I thought the line played really well against the Saints, even with Grant Barton out. The run game has really come together. Like Luke Gedeke is a huge player for this team, their right tackle. Him being out there, it totally transforms the offense. Where the biggest weakness is their left guard spot right now. Cody Mock's playing a little bit better. So the line is just like, I had this note to myself after I watched the game was that, man, they get one more guard. This line is going to be like a top 5 line next year, offensive line, which is totally different from what it was a year ago. You got to invest in your line to have a good line. That's how it works. But like you just mentioned, the pass catchers, Chris Godwin is the yak monster right now. Had one of the best receiver stiff arms you'll ever see in your life against the Saints. And then Bucky Irving just comes in there and gives his stiff arm and has a ridiculous run that some people are comparing to Tecmo Bowl. That's the only way you could define that run. You mentioned everything with the defense, and that's what kind of held them off for me. It's that the linebackers are a big glaring weakness right now, especially in the passing game. That matters because of how aggressive Todd Bowles can be, and so they can get gashed pretty easily. Vita Vea is a strong player against the run, but it's not like an outstanding run defense where I'm like, ooh, I'm really scared. So I think if you have a good game plan, you can get after them. And if you're sound, if you're not starting Spencer Rattler, and I mean, the first half Rattler was great. The second half, he kind of got blitzed to being a rookie. He can do that. Like Todd Bowles can do that. But all right, who are you playing in the playoffs? Are you playing the Bears?
Next 3 weeks, they're playing Lamar, Kirk Cousins again, and then Pat Mahomes. Yeah, so this could this take could age really poorly.
Yeah, so that's why I'm just that's what kept me off. But I would say they were team 11. Like for me, they were the first one off. The Falcons you just nailed it. They're ascending. Like their hashtag is rise up, and like that offense is rising. Like it really is. I know they played the Panthers and everything, but it's more sound. It's better. They're using their players better. You just mentioned Drake London. He had a phenomenal block on a wineback play. And it was like, sweet, you're dropping that in there. Some of that Ram stuff, that Cooper Kupp Puka stuff. They're dropping that in there. Kirk Cousins looks great. Still moving. Little iffy, but he's firing that rock. He's playing on time. The O-line's playing decent, playing pretty solid. Again, caveat against the Panthers, but just the last couple of weeks. And the run game is legitimately one of the best run games. Like it's like, I kind of wish I saw Arthur Smith with this run game. No offense to their coaches now and Zach Robinson and everything, but with the backs, with Bijan, Tyler Algier, aka Hamster Ball, like this is a true legit run game that can keep them every game. It's an explosive pass game. I'm iffy about their defense too, but it's kind of they have the same kind of arguments. And that's what kind of kept me maybe like, oh, do I want to keep them 10 like that? I do have hesitancies about the defense. I do not think it is a good defense, but they can make plays. They have playmakers. AJ Terrell had a nice play. Jesse Bates is still a good player. They can do things. It's just that, not a big needle moving unit, but the offense is a needle moving unit. All the efficiency and explosive play stats I look at, they're good on early downs. Kirk Cousins is a good operator on late downs. So yeah, feel really good about the offense. And so when you're trying to parse these teams, you're betting on the best unit. And I feel good about that Falcons unit, but I do feel good about the Bucs offense too. So fun two teams, especially where we started the season, how I felt about both of them. Moving on, we both had the Bills at 8 with an asterisk that we might move them up. But 8-6, somewhere in this range, somewhere around it. I'll just start real quick. The Bills for me, I already talked about a little bit of this, talking about Ray Davis in the run game. I think all the elements that they have there. Josh Allen maybe got his Josh Allen badness out the last couple of weeks, but still, like, even that crazy performance against the Texans that was so wonky, there's still some moments of brilliance from him. He can still run the ball. Rex Ryan calling that he's going to keep the ball on third down to win the game was awesome, because it was just like, yep, it's what he does. It's like, yeah, you can key on it. He can still do it. And I feel better about this defense than I thought. I watched that Texans game on TV and I was like, oh man, really? I know you have some injuries, but man, this isn't great. Reviewed him on all 22 and I felt a lot better about him. And do I think it's a top 5 unit? No, but I think it's more of like a top 12-ish unit. One that I think can hang in games. And when they have an offense that can run the ball like that, they still have Josh Allen. Now they have a little bit more explosiveness on that offense. I feel good about the Bills. Even if after those weird couple of weeks, I do feel good about them. So not sure. I think you kind of sort of feel the same, but do you have any additional thoughts with the Bills?
No, I like your points about the defense, and eventually they will get Von Miller back too, who was actually playing pretty well to start the year. And
gee, I wonder why.
Why is he not on the field anymore? I don't know. Yeah, and now it's like Amari Cooper definitely. If that addition works out, because I do think this offense really looks sound and well designed. You know, people complain about their kind of players and stuff like that, but I think they're just in a tough spot with the dudes that are on the roster. And I think this Cooper thing could really help them kind of, because Shakir, once he's healthier, is such a good receiver. And yeah, I like your points about how they'll be able to work off the two there. Yeah.
It's sound. I know the offense sometimes leaves me kind of going like, oh, maybe try this, but I never have complaints about the offense. Like I never go like, man, why did you do that? Maybe throwing MVS one-on-one against Derek Stingley wasn't my favorite, but again, that's circumstances of personnel. Like, you know,
right, exactly. Like, what are you going to do? I mean,
what else are you going to do?
You're going to throw to Matt Collins one-on-one. You're going to throw to Keon Coleman one-on-one. Right. Like, that's all a journey. Now you got maybe a guy that you can trust in those situations.
Yeah. So Bills stock definitely ascending. Fun team. All right, you had 49ers. 7 for me, 6 for you. Where are you at with the 49ers?
What a weird team so far this year.
Such a weird team.
What a weird team so far this year. Even that Thursday night game, you could feel a little bit of like tight. Is this
good?
Like, this is good. The results are good. I think Purdy's played really well. Yep. Insane that like his passer rating on play action is the best in the league, and yet they're one of the lowest play action teams in the NFL this year. That's bizarre.
That's bizarre.
What do you make of that from an offensive perspective? Because it's what they're running seems so different and sort of like antithetical to the whole kind of ethos of what Shanahan has been, even when they took that next phase of their evolution away from like the Jimmy Garoppolo and all that, like not that stuff and like all the outside zone. They moved to a different type of run game, more like straight drop back passes with Brock Purdy. But now it feels like they've really kind of gone in the other direction. I can't quite get my hands on that. Nobody has really played to their full potential or been healthy the entire year. Like Andor, Ayuk has not had the season that he's having, and I think he'll be fine at some point, but he's not having the season that he had last year. Ricky Pearsall, their first round pick, hadn't been available. Debo has not been 100% all year. He's missed time. Kittle's missed time. Obviously no CMC. So it's like there's a hypothetical world where this ranking them at 6 and 7 could look stupid in like 4 months when, they're really out there slinging it around in the playoffs or something like that. But I don't know. Right now, they've just been a bit of a weird team.
Yeah, weird team. Like that's my first note. Bullet point, weird team. The offense is just really missing CMC. We talked about it last week, and it's just that, especially in the red zone, you can feel it. Outside of a brilliant throw from Purdy to Kittle, that was one of probably, I think, Purdy's best throws of his career, the touchdown to Kittle in the lower red zone. But then look how hard that was. Like, that was hard. That was a great throw and catch from Purdy and Kittle. Yes, players have to make plays, but man, look at this offense the last couple of years, especially after CMC. They got inside the 10. It was like clockwork. It was easy for them. Guys running wide open. And I think that's just going to continue to be a thing. Like maybe they get this little mini bye, kind of get a little bit of refresher over the weekend and go, okay, we got to do this, this, and this. You move the ball and don't punch it home, and your kicker situation isn't great. That's kind of hard. And if your defense isn't defense is solid, but not great, and it's more stars and scrubsy to me, that's a hard formula because you need the touchdowns. You need the 6 points, the 7 points, as opposed to just settling for 3. So that's why it just all doesn't add up, but I still feel okay about him because, like you said, Purdy's creating really well. His, he's got like a trademark move now. The little back, the fake forward back, and then he just creates a little space, and every defender falls for it. It's sick because you can see I know everyone jokes about the 10-yard split time. You can actually see it there. Like that actually carries over.
Dalton Del Don on the fantasy show kind of says, I think this was him yesterday, but he's a 49ers fan, but he called him like this generation's Tony Romo. And he feels kind of like a Romo type of player, when you actually watch him. I feel like he gets the game manager stuff and all that, but it's just like you watch him play this year, he's not playing like a game manager. He is playing a little bit like a little
Mark Brunell there. Yeah.
Most of my Mark Brunell memories are unfortunately with the Washington football team during my upbringing. So.
Oh God. Oh, you had some fun ones as a kid. Then you got Spurrier. You got.
There's a reason I'm not a fan of that team because I watched a lot. I've watched more Jason Campbell dump offs to Mike Sellers than I could have ever wanted in my life. I don't even know why I like the sport, to be honest with you.
That's like, yeah. I always got the hook as a kid. I cheered for good teams, and then they just became bad after the Mariners and Timberwolves. Then they became bad, so they hooked me in. No, Jordan Mason's banged up now. Isaac Guerrero. I know. I should know it. He used to be a Badger. God, I always mess up with his name, but he's not good. I'll just straight up say that he's a boom bust running back. That scares me a little bit because they need to stay on schedule. If they're going to be chucking it, that's always the basis of this offense is always going to be running the ball, but he's more boom busty. And I'm curious if they keep rolling with him, if they go to Patrick Taylor a little bit more to kind of maybe split that. So that's just something I'm keeping my eye on. I got to watch it a little bit. Guerrero, I'm sorry. I always want to say Guerrero, but Guerrero, but he's very fast. You can see that. And if you get a runway, you can hit those. So it's going to be more on the blocking as opposed to CMC really creating stuff. Jordan Mason could actually run through some stuff that helped out. So I just got to see a little bit more of this. And then just the defense has me a little worried with the injuries in the back end. The linebackers outside Fred Warner are still mid. And I think teams are going to really attack that. I really you've already seen it. See more of it. I'm not overwhelmed right now, even if I do think they're still a good team. So yeah, that's the 49ers for me. Like you said, I could see them in 2 months being like a top 3 team easy. And I'm just like, I always do this with Shanahan. Every time he has a struggle and a month later, it looks amazing. So still like what they're cooking up. I had the Texans at 6, but spoilers, you have them in your top 5. And we'll get to the rest of our top 5 power rankings after the break. Home stretch, top 5. Already spoiled a couple of them, one for each of us. But list off your 5 through 1 power rankings after week 6, Mr. Matt Harmon.
All right, I've got Vikings at 5, Texans at 4, Chiefs at 3, Lions at 2, Ravens at 1.
Wow. Like it.
And I really wanted, if Aiden Hutchinson would have been defensive player of the year, let the record show. I cursed the
Great
poor man.
take.
And I feel so bad about it. This has to somehow cosmically be my fault. I mean, it felt so great about Matt Harmon, edge rusher expert. It's well known.
It felt good coming off the bat too. Like
BYB, bring your bull rush. And pretty bad stuff there. But yeah, I might have had Detroit at number 1 if it wasn't for the Aiden Hutchinson injury, but I settled with them at 2.
Yeah, so why I at the beginning of the show was I was a little disappointed in my top 2. Because I'll tell you in a sec, but my number 5, God, I got too many notes here. Top 5 was pretty fun. I have the Ravens at 5. I have the Packers at 4. I have the Lions at 3. That little bit of Aiden Hutchinson, they would have been 2, but that did move a little more. The Vikings at 2 and the Chiefs at 1. I have the undefeated teams at 1 and 2, but I do have arguments for it. So, because when I list this off, and this is my methodology, I really just open up the Google Doc whenever I'm doing like a ranking thing or a listing thing, and I just like, okay, top of my head, who am I having on here? And the first 2 teams were Chiefs and Vikings, and then 8 teams, and the other teams kind of got in there, and then I kind of just broke it down, looked at numbers, parsed numbers, feelings, what I watch on film, and yeah, they're still my top 2. So we'll get to that in a second, but let's start with the Texans because I had them at 6, you have them at 4. They just beat the Patriots in Drake May's first start. But what are you feeling about the Texans right now to put them at 4?
Yeah, they're a little bit of an interesting team because I feel like they're mid-level in point differential. They're, a lot of us like football dorks are like, yeah, but their early down offense and their run game and the offensive line and some of the mid-level of the defense. I don't know. Like, yeah, this, that, and the other. Well, they're 5-1, and they have a guy who might be the best quarterback in the NFL, or at least the guy who might be playing quarterback the best right now in the NFL in CJ Stroud. So it's just like, yeah, can I really get a team like that out of my top 5 when also they can lose a guy who is an elite top 5 wide receiver and still be okay? Not great, but they can be okay. Tank Dell is not the player that he was last year yet. I maintain that on film. Like he is not as explosive as he was as a rookie, but he's still a good route runner who can he's not going to explode and get separation. He's not going to be as open as he was last year, but he's still a fundamentally sound player who has really good chemistry with the quarterback. He can become that like compiling receiver for you. Steph Diggs has played good football for them this year. They get Joe Mixon back and they have 2 good games running the ball. Week 1, week 6. What's the common thread there? I don't know what it is. Might be going from
running back signing.
Might be going from Cam Akers, after 2 Achilles injuries to this version of Joe Mixon, who's not even like an elite back or anything, but he's a professional. No. He's a professional running back
right.
Who's like tight on his details, So I think that's. I'm not saying that run game's all the way solved. I'm not saying that the issues structurally in the offense, which are there. I was saying in the offseason, I thought Bobby Slowick got a little bit overrated based on what happened last year. And I think we're seeing a little bit of that like lack of counterpunch come to fruition. But again, I feel like all of these are nitpicks because on defense too, they can get after the quarterback, man. Like generally, I know this is football 301. I'm going to take us back to 101 here. You have an elite quarterback and you have a great pass rush. You win a lot of football games. That's kind of how I feel about the Texans right now.
That's my argument for them. I go, they got the great equalizers, a pass rush and an awesome quarterback. Like that's my argument for them. I originally had them at 4 and then bumped them to 6 when I kind of started looking more into them, how I really feel about them. I think your holistic word is perfect here because it's more just about how I generally feel and how maybe they match up against contenders or other contenders and all that stuff. So it's kind of hard to talk out both sides of my mouth, but it's our power ranking show, so I can do whatever I want.
Who cares?
Yeah, pass rush is a great equalizer. They're losing Mario Edwards, who had the game of his life, probably got tested after that, and then gets popped with a PED thing. But they're getting Danico Alcher back. So maybe that helps out. But I don't trust the offensive line. That's what's holding me back. Stroud mitigates it as much as any quarterback can, especially any quarterback that does not scramble can. Like he is getting hit over and over and still delivers 20-yard frozen ropes that are just perfect spirals right on the guy's like face mask. I love watching CJ Stroud. Him and Lamar are my MVPs 1 and 2 in some shape or form. Thankfully, I don't have to do an article right now about it and get yelled at. But I think the line, Laramie Tunsil's mid right now. Like he is not playing how he usually plays. He's always been a penalty guy, but now he has penalties and just above average play, not elite level or excellent level play. That is why I'm kind of just like, all right, so when you play teams that are going to make it tough on you and you get outside the opening script, you mentioned Bobby Slowick and all that. They're on the opening script, which is generally called the first 15 plays. Slowick being a true Shanahan guy, it looks like they're more of an opening script team. First 15 plays, they're 4th in EPA per play. After the first 15 plays, they're 23rd in EPA per play. So it's once they get off that and they have to adjust, I think adjustments are a big weakness for this offense and have been. I like that it's so hard too because their third down concepts are good. That's the most fun part about this offense is Stroud executing on third down. They have to do it a ton, but like the designs are there. Yeah, the designs are good. Like so whoever's in charge of third down stuff there, I really like. And I've been trying to figure out, I think they have a passing game coordinator, but I've been trying to figure it out because it's not typical Shanahan stuff. It's different stuff thrown in there. But yeah, that's one I've been keeping on, but it's just, or keeping an eye on. They still have Derek Stingley, still have Alshire. I still think you can get after this defense, but I still think it's a good defense with a pass rush. So 6 felt like a good spot for them for me, but it could go either way because or like 2 spots either way because I think Stroud is just so good. All right.
Bill Lazor is a senior offensive assistant on this team.
There it is.
Ben McDaniels, who I'm going to assume is related to Josh, is the
Probably.
passing game coordinator.
Yeah, I know him. Funny. Sorry. Sometimes I hear a name. It's like, oh, I met him before. But going on, the rest of the top 5, I'll go with, all right, let's go with my number 4 team, your number 7 team, which is the Green Bay Packers. I almost got a little spice here with this Packers team because I'm feeling pretty good about them. But you have them at 7. Where are you at with the Packers right now?
I don't really have any questions about the offense.
Right.
I love that we're seeing sort of proof of concept of this wide receiver room, which is just like, yep. I mean, Christian Watson gets hurt. Romeo Doubs misses a game due to being, whatever was going on there. Personal conduct detrimental to the team is the way they labeled it. We'll just leave it at that. And he comes right back next game. He has 2 touchdowns while after Dontavian Wicks gets hurt. We've seen the depth of this room has really come to fruition. I love that they're using, Tucker Kraft's a 3.2 average depth of target this year, but he's averaging 10 yards after the catch per reception. He is almost, he's a really good player. Because they've unleashed Jaden Reed on more of these downfield routes, they need someone else to just kind of be the outlet receiver and the guy operating in the flats, and that has been Tucker Kraft. And because he is such a good player, he's also brought pop to those plays. So I feel really good about where the offense is. Their run game is just kind of on schedule, a little bit of a boring run game, but again, it's keeping them on schedule. I still just have some hangups about the defense, which kept them out of the top 5 for me.
That I've come around on the defense a little bit, but I do have hesitancy. I think they're more average than a very good unit. They're playing they keep getting turnovers, and I always struggle with that. Is it
right?
Can that sustain? Is that what you're doing? And so that's why I'm always like, oh, look how many turnovers they got. They're going to keep it up because it's proven that's hard to keep up. But it does speak to kind of their back end's very well coached. I've been liking the DBs, especially with McKinney back there, but just the other guys too. They're sound on the back end. Their linebackers, you can get them after them a little bit. I think their front is pretty good, but you can run on them a little bit. Lucas Van Ness is playing well, though. I do like him. I think he's really emerging as a second-year player. So the defense, I think, is just more average-ish. I just love the offense so much. It's after my own heart. It really is. I keep saying this, guys, but I'm never going to stop because this is exactly how I like my offenses. The run game, like you said, it's a jab. They use the run game truly as a jab. And that's just to set up Jordan Love and these receivers and the designs. Matt LaFleur gets so much respect for me and will continue to do so because the designs are so sound. There's a little creativity in there. He did I didn't want to tweet it because I know someone was going to poke at it. He inverted a stick concept that I haven't really seen before. And I'll tweet it, but it was pretty interesting. It was out of empty, but just, I don't want to get too much into it, but just shows that's we're going to just take our staples and just add a little twist on it. And it was an out route to Josh Jacobs. So if anyone remembers that play, and then you got Love, who's just ripping it. And he had the cover 0 touchdown to Dobbs.
That was to Dobbs. Yeah, it was sick.
And that play, I know non-Packers fans, non-cheeseheads are going, how lucky is he? If you remember against the Vikings, he tried the same exact thing against cover 0. Shooters shoot. And those are 50-50 balls for a reason. Sometimes you throw a dumbass pick, but sometimes you get rewarded for a touchdown. The receivers can make plays too. And that's an advantage when these DBs are expecting something quick and you try to just gash them out of it with a touchdown. And that's why I like Love. It's that nothing's going to deter him from keep doing that. And you need that to win games. And they have it. I just think this offense is really coming around just like last year. These young players, they kind of gel and they figure out this new personnel and they keep ascending. I think the offensive line's solid. They're true greater than the sum of their parts. They truly are just a good unit, even if it's not the most sexy offensive line. So well coached, quarterback willing to wing it, an offense that's really emerging week in, week out and really coming along. Glad you brought up Tucker Kraft because I stated that on a mailbag question that I basically consider him a top 6 tight end right now in the league. Yeah.
Love it.
We had a great question, a mailbag question too. This show is going to get too long, but future shows we're going to answer one mailbag question a show. I figured that one out, but they asked top 8 tight ends. Would you consider Kraft in there? I'm like, I think so. I think I'm really willing to say that because I do think he's that good of a player. Good team. I just like this team. I think their defense is coming along and I think they're pretty complete. Hate the kicker situation though.
Yeah, that's a little questionable. I mean, come on, like enough already with the kicker with 44.
So, man, he's iffy. So that does cause some hesitancy. You're only as good as your kicker. That's the classic line about quarterbacks. Quarterback's only as good as his kicker. I just like the offense. I will continue to like it. I just think they have answers week in, week out. They're gonna make it tough on teams. But continuing in their top 5, let's go with your 5 team, the Vikings, who are my number 2 team because I guess I'm a sucker for undefeated teams. But Vikings at 5. How are you feeling about them right now? Coming off a bye week as well.
Yeah, I mean, look, they're just so well coached and well prepared on both sides of the ball. Just love the approach on offense, love the approach on defense. I've submitted to the Sam Darnold oligarchs. I'm not going to keep quiet about that one for the time being, although he is coming off his worst game before the bye.
I know.
Thankfully, his old team, the Jets, actually did him a solid by being a complete dumpster fire that no one's talking about it. But
us oligarchs hear you peasants rumbling down there. Hear you guys causing chaos down there, throwing bread at us. I hear you guys.
We're hoping for just one of you guys to drop down like a moldy hunk of cheese or like whatever, spoiled bread or something. Like, come on, like we just need something at this point. Things have gotten so bleak down here.
Morton Joe and Mad Max just doing the water. Just a little drop of water.
Just a little drop of water to us Sam Darnold non-believers. But I think the offense, I think this team's really good. I don't really know I don't really have a hang up, like anything that I'm doubting about this team. I think Aaron Jones, we've already seen the injury issues. Hopefully that doesn't take some air out of this thing going forward, because the run game is, we've talked about before, so good, so explosive, and he is a perfect fit for what they want to do. Like, they don't want, obviously we just talked about the Packers, the team that'll let him go. They don't want their run game in Minnesota to be a jab. Like, they want it to be more of an explosive element here, in addition to something that keeps them on schedule, which I love how that works in the passing game, where they'll let Sam rip it a few times a game, but for the most part, they've designed things really well for him too, and allowed him to do what he does best, which is, I think he can really pick you apart when things are on schedule here. So
just spin the wheel, do what he does best, which is spin the wheel.
To me, I don't have any big questions about this team. Yeah. I don't really have big questions about many of the teams in my top 5. I like all of them. It just, I just have Minnesota at 5.
Yeah. I originally had them maybe, even almost like borderline, like 5-ish, 4-ish. And then I just kind of, again, it's a combination for me of, all right, how I feel about them, what have I seen, and then looking at stats to make sure I'm not just pulling a 2023 Falcons. I think
I don't think you're doing that. just to be clear.
I did not. I did not with this team. I just think they're really good. Like, I just do. Their floor is higher than I think people realize, that with that run game that you mentioned, that's why I think that they've insulated themselves from the Darnoldness. And just not only just they do have a high success rate, but on top of being explosive too. So it's not just boom bust. It's has some sustainability, but it is trying to search and seek those explosive plays, which I think is, that's great. Darnold's Darnold. He's going to have some highs. It's going to open up things in the red zone, which is good because the designs are good there. They still haven't used too much of his legs, which I think is interesting. It's more just scrambles. They haven't used the design runs yet. So maybe after the bye week, do we see that? So KOC is an excellent play designer. He's super aggressive. Their personnel is good. Addison's back, of course. Hawkinson's working his way back. Aaron Jones is hopefully not missing any time. He practiced, so I think that we're okay there, but he always does miss time. What games are they going to be? That's always the thing. Ty Chandler on his second or third play gets hit right in the face with a toss play and turns into a fumble. So that's why you want Aaron Jones, a little more trustworthy. That's no, it's all right, Ty, you got it. Oh God, that's nothing like that. And I just think the defense is such a hard out. Like, they've shored up on some stuff that could get them in the past. They're better against zone runs this year. Duo is the best run against them, but zone runs, they've learned to kind of gash them because they have so much movement and so much stuff. So it's cool to see a defense adding layers. Now they have this bye week. Do they add even more layers? Do they add even more new things? So that's
Dallas Turner. Does he get involved here? He hasn't been, obviously completely in the mix this year. So there's potentially some reinforcements on that side of the ball too.
That's it. Yeah. So that's why I didn't have enough to kind of ding them. And actually every time I just kind of kept thinking back, the line's not the greatest line, but they're solid. They're pretty solid and they can hold up decently in pass protection. They're not great, but decently. And Darnold can create some things, but also could be some bad things. The combination of just all of it, I think the floor is higher, even with the wacky defense and Darnold's wackiness, that I think that they have a high ceiling too. So yeah, I ended up going with them at 2, and I like what they're doing. I want to see them after the bye. So, but going on, your number 5, or I'm sorry, my number 5 team was your number 1 team. Or do you want to save this one? But
it's probably our biggest difference. Let's get into it here, man.
The Ravens, the Baltimore Ravens just beat the Washington Commanders in a fun game.
Very fun game.
Why are they your number 1 team?
Baltimore, man, they're not the defense that they were last year. I think we can say that safely at this point. I'm interested to see what like Dean Pease brings. They brought him on as a consultant, which is probably a good idea for Zach Orr, who's a first-time defensive play caller. The secondary has had issues this year. They've given up a lot of production to passing games. They still absolutely demolish run games. It's so funny. Like, I love what Cliff Kingsbury's done as a run game designer. I think they've gotten the best out of mid-level offensive line talent in Washington so far this season. It was like, okay, that's cute. We're the Ravens, and we're just going to beat the hell out of you. And we're just going to, and I know Brian Robinson didn't play in this game, but they just completely snuffed out what was one of the most efficient run games in the NFL. And I think they can continue to do that. So defense isn't what it was last year, but they still have Kyle Hamilton. They still have, Raquan Smith maybe hasn't played his best football this year, I don't think, but still overall a player I don't just suddenly think he's lost it out of nowhere. I think they'll be fine in time. And then offensively, man, well, they might not be the defense that they were last year. I think this might be the most I've been impressed with an offense in the Lamar Jackson era, which is saying something because the guy has won 2 MVPs, including last year. But this is the second year in the system with Todd Monken. The run game with Derrick Henry obviously is obnoxiously good. Even in a game like the last, 2 of the last 3 here, when he hasn't maybe been the biggest factor, which by the way, I would say is good. Last 2 games, really. I would say that's good. And he's still been hyper productive. He's still been over 130 rushing yards in 3 of the last 4 games. We know it's just an absolutely ridiculous run game. Even then, like, okay, we're leading you in the fourth quarter. Derrick Henry's like the sim to end player. Like we're going to go ahead and get the end of this game because we're going to give him the ball in the fourth quarter. But so we know that's good. I would say, man, this passing game, I'm very impressed with at this point. I know they don't have a true, number 1 receiver, but they're finally, Nate, unleashing Zay Flowers on real routes, not just I get why they want to get him on screens, and they have been giving him screens the last 2 weeks and some kind of Mickey Mouse gadgety stuff because he's so dynamic with the ball in his hands. But the guy has been a press man beater, even at his size, dating back to, or at least a man coverage beater, dating back to his time at BC. Like the guy can run routes. Yeah, the guy can run routes in the intermediate area of the field. And the last 2 weeks, albeit against bad defenses, Cincinnati and Washington, they have really finally gotten him going in that area. Our guy Rashad Bateman, Nate Tice, in terms of targets that turn into a first down or touchdown over, I think 82. I tweeted it out yesterday, and if I was better, I'd have it ready to rock here, but I can filibuster and get it real quick.
Filibuster, don't worry. Stall.
Just NGS.com. Yeah, exactly. In terms of wide receivers in the NFL right now, as I continue to filibuster and True Media updates here, top 4 players in terms of percentage of targets to turn into a first down or touchdown. Catches, excuse me. Number 1 is A.J. Brown. Number 2 is Nico Collins. Number 3 is DeMarcus Robinson. Number 4 is Rashad Bateman. 82.4% of his catches have been first down or touchdown. Guys a legit factor in the offense. Mark Andrews isn't the same player, I think, coming off that tightrope injury, but they have 3 tight ends. Even Charlie Kolar got in the mix here. Isaiah Likely's dangerous. So I don't know. Lamar, I think, is really in touch and in tune with this system right now, and they have good players around him. So the fact that there's a little bit of a drop off in the defense, I think, hey, that's going to happen year to year. You know how you offset that? Your offense takes a step forward, and I think we've seen that with Baltimore.
I think the Ravens are going to be in a lot of fun games because of the combination of an awesome offense that's first in explosive pass rate, second in explosive run rate, and third in rushing success rate. That's a winning formula. If you can run the ball and sustain a run game and then get explosive passing plays with your arm or legs with Lamar, yeah, you're going to score points, even if the offensive line is playing better, way better than week 1 of course, they have so many moving parts. They're not great though. They still have some drop back stuff, but they're much better than they've really come along. They bludgeon you with Derrick Henry. All right. They're going to try a bunch of tight ends and Patrick Ricard. All right. Well, we got to have big bodies out there to slow this down. All right. So now you're daring, are we going to cover Zay Flowers? Yak, Isaiah Likely's decent against that. Lamar scrambling against that. That's hard for any defense to like, all right, every down, we got to pick what we're going to go against here.
Lamar called it a pick your poison offense after the game on Sunday, and I thought that was a perfect way to say it. And like they've never been that type of team. Even again, he's won MVPs. He's had some super efficient passing seasons. It's different. I don't think they've ever been a scary passing team or a scary multiple passing team.
Yep.
I think now with Monken at the coordinator position for the second year and Lamar just being Lamar, I think they finally are that type of team.
Yeah, Lamar, and this is the best ball of Lamar's career. Like, it really is. Like I said, it's either one or two MVP with him and Stroud. And I'd probably give it to Lamar just because it's a little easier to back it up with some stats, even though Stroud is kind of outplaying those stats. But why I have him at 5 is I am a little iffy on the defense. They can stuff the run. They give up no explosive runs. Their first in explosive runs, I think it was like 2% explosive runs, which is absurd. Like, good is like 7% or 8%. Like, they're at 2. So they make it really hard to run the ball. The DBs just keep kind of have some communication issues, and it keeps coming up each week. Roquan has lost a step in pass coverage. He's still good against the run. A little bit in pass coverage, he's lost a step. So, but they're dead last in explosive passes allowed. And that's scary to me because I saw the Commanders get after it a couple times, like where they motioned to get Dawson Eckler wheel route. They popped him there. They have Nate Wiggins, who's nice, but he, is a young player. Sometimes that happens. So that's what kept me a little lower. It was just that. It was just like, this defense has definitely lost some teeth, but I still think it's solid. So I just want to see them prove it. Maybe they maybe need a bye week. They need a deep breath to reconfigure some things. And maybe after that bye or after that deep breath, then they can kind of really come on and reconfigure what their defense is. But still a good team. Like, I could have easily argued them at 2, and I almost did. But I kind of dropped them down because that defense just leaves me a little antsy. We got 2 last teams here. We will go with the Chiefs, who I have at 1. You have at 3. I'll start off just real quick. Patrick Mahomes, a top 10 defense and a reconfigured offensive line with a really good run game. I'm betting on that every single day of the week, twice on Sunday or Monday or Thursday or Saturday once the season goes along. They could stop the run, which is usually how you get after Spags. Is okay, we're screw passing the ball against these crazy looks, just run it. They're second in sex rate, which is success and explosive play rate against running back runs. God, people are getting on me today. It's like, it wasn't me. But they don't let up any explosive runs. They're second in explosive play rate allowed total, which that's huge because of how crazy this defense can be. You overcome the negatives you take on offense by gashing them on the other end. If we can't gash them, then what? All right, well, we have to stay on schedule, but they're going to get you with a sack or a TFL. Or Chris Jones is going to take over. So that's why I'm betting on this team. The O-line is playing well, even if tackles aren't. They're okay, but they're better than how they were playing last year. But they can run the ball, and that's why it doesn't matter who's back there. 80% Kareem Hunt, Carson Steele, P. Ryan. I keep kind of bringing this up, and I've watched it now. It's sustainable. This is week in, week out. They're third in running back success rate. And I think that's just going to be a thing for them. So they're the number 1 team for me for those reasons. But you have them a little lower. What were some of the blemishes? I'm going to guess that it rhymes with Cass Petchers.
My lawyers have advised me not to speak negatively about the Kansas City Chiefs on this airwave because we know how that ends. So I'm not going to do that. I will just say we get Isaiah Pacheco back in the mix here because you're right. Like, that run game will be sound no matter who's in there. But like, a guy like that in the backfield, even if Pacheco's not the perfect running back or anything like that, a guy like that back there will truly weaponize the run game, I think, a little bit more than this version of Kareem Hunt, things like that. I'd like to see a little more out of, obviously, yes, the pass catchers, of course. I mean, Juju's going to be 85% Rashee Rice. He's not going to give you the same explosive after the catch ability, but I've always said that Rashee Rice's rookie season reception perception perfectly compares to Juju Smith-Schuster early in his career. So he's just not going to give you the same pop after the catch like early career Juju or certainly this version of Rashee Rice, but sound player, has to trust Mahomes. Like, if we get Xavier Worthy actually activated here, which I know you and I are just kind of skeptical, then yeah, we're talking about that could easily be my number one team. I just think that a team that's this toothless in the pass catching department, can they really be my number one team? I don't know. But of course, I've obviously learned the lesson with Mahomes and receivers and things like. I will say too, Mahomes is not having his best year to start this year. I think, and if he was 2023 Mahomes and we had all these issues on offense, that would. And I don't really think there's no take here. I'm not concerned about Mahomes or anything like that. I just think realistically, what I've seen so far, I think the Lions and the Ravens have been a better team.
Yeah, they're Mahomes has to play late career Breeze right now. It's he's jabbing away and then maybe an occasional deep shot, but he's barely throwing the ball deep. It's just what they're doing now. And it's just, I've learned to never bet against them. I feel like the formula of Mahomes and a good defense and the O-line that's okay is I'm okay. I'm keep betting on this. All right, last team, wrap it up because otherwise Stone might kill us. I have the Lions at 3. You have the Lions at 2. I think we're both kind of in the same boat with this team that, I have no qualms with the offense. I think this offense rocks. First and success rate, sacks rate, explosive play rate, everything. They pass the ball well. If you get them on third down, doesn't matter. They're not a typical run first team where it's all right, get them on 3rd and 8. They're screwed. No, Ben Johnson is really good designing stuff on third down. Their pass protection rules are not Shanahan rules. They're Hank Fraley traditional pass protection rules, which I really like. And Goff knows how to sort it out. And his good operating right there. The Jameson Williams touchdown was a great design. The deep one, they did it against the Bucs last year. Used a cheetah cadence, which is when the center just grabs the ball and snaps it. But again, it was third down is not a weakness for this team. It's a continued strength for the offense. And then, defense is playing better. They're aggressive. Aiden Hutchinson is going to be iffy. Losing him, your defensive player of the year prediction, which I still liked. But you can see their young players get more comfortable on the back end. And I think that's really interesting. The Brian Branch interception against Dak was awesome. You can hear Tom Brady just going oh, but then realizing he has to do good commentary and be neutral and not a quarterback first guy. And he's yeah, you can just see the eyes here. That was so funny to me because every quarterback in the world goes, oh, that's brutal, because it's just a DB making a great play. But I like the defense. They're not giving up as many explosive plays as maybe I thought. And for how much man coverage they play, that's really good. And I just still think they can do things even without Hutchinson, up front. I do think Ali McNeil is a good player. I think their front seven is still good. I just feel good about the Lions. The NFC North, if you can't tell, all 4 NFC North teams in my top 10.
Same.
And same for you. So I'm glad we're both on the same page there. But cap us off with your Lions thoughts.
I didn't realize until I looked at it too that they are the top 4 teams in point differential. All 4 NFC North teams. It's
all 4 of them are. Oh, yeah. I didn't know that either.
Vikings, Lions, Bears, Packers. It's pretty outrageous. The NFC North is just the best defense. Just the best division ever. It's insane. It's outrageous that we have all thit's teams in our top 10. It's crazy stuff. Yeah. But yeah,
I feel good about it.
Yeah, and I don't feel like that's a hot take either.
No, at all.
That's not trying to do anything for attention. Man, yeah, you brought up great points about the defense, and I think that they hold up to being a really good man coverage team. It's so, I don't know, admirable when a team wants to play this much man coverage. It's then you get teams like Jacksonville. Okay, you need to stop doing that. You don't have the horses to be doing that. Yeah. And then we'll see what they look like without Aiden Hutchinson, of course. But this is a team that has the horses to play this much man coverage and get away with it and be a tough out every single week. So I think on offense too, man, just Dave Montgomery, what a great player. Number 2 in rushing success rate among backs with 40 plus carries. The only one that's higher than him is Tyler Algier. So that's pretty epic. Sorry, Bijan Robinson fantasy managers, Tyler Algier is not going anywhere. You're going to just have to learn to live with it. And I feel that's the same thing with Dave Montgomery. He might be the better back in fantasy than Jahmyr Gibbs going forward just because he fits this offense so well. And yeah, funny you bring up Tom Brady too, because it felt like him calling that game on Sunday. It felt like, wow, I finally get to talk about a team worth my eyeballs, because he was just clearly so impressed by the way this offense is designed and operates and the way Goff plays in it, and how in tune he is with the scheme and the way Ben Johnson. It's you could tell that was a guy that's watched a lot of Cowboys. And just how
yes, and I think he's regretting that he has the NFC afternoon game every week. because it's always going to be the Cowboys.
It's always the Cowboys and they're like constipated, everything is difficult offense. And then it's like, man, we are, sorry for the analogy, but flowing smoothly here in the Detroit Lions offense. So yeah, you could tell that like Brady was really impressed with that. And I mean, anybody that watches Detroit, you got to come away feeling the exact same way.
It's if you can run the ball successfully and you can create explosive plays, like it's just like it's doesn't get much harder than that. And they've proven it before. That's the thing. It's not like I'm like, wow. It's like, no, this offense does this week in, week out. The Ben Johnson, the sniper, like their design plays are so great. He had like 7 offensive line gadget plays. Like, I think they were annoyed about that call last year.
Yeah, trying to prove trying to prove the point type thing. I've never seen an offensive coordinator whose team blew out another team by almost 40 plus points, looking so irritated on the sideline.
Ben Johnson was pissed. Yeah. He was like mad. Like at the end, they were doing the Penei Sewell gadget play where it was the hook and ladder to Penei Sewell, and like because they called the flag, Ben Johnson's like livid. I was like, that was. Okay. All right. Well, I like it, I guess. That's why I'm not betting against this team. That was fun. I'm sure everybody will be happy with us. I mentioned some of their honorable mentions. Commanders were one of mine as well. Bucks, another one. I actually had Chargers, ?
Ooh. Interesting.
Yeah, I couldn't put them in my top 10, but I do want to give them honorable mention. That defense is sound. I know they haven't played much, but not bad. And Herbert looked good last week. So yeah.
Falcons, Commanders, and were probably my 2 honorable mentions. It just couldn't get there with the defense with Washington, and obviously Pittsburgh. They're 4-2. They're top 6 in point differential, but I just can't say a team where I'm like about the quarterback situation is a top 10 team for me in the NFL. So
when you're swapping quarterbacks or swapping head coaches, I'm not gonna. It's hard for me to anoint you anywhere. All right, that'll do it though. That was fun. We're closing out today. Charles will be back. Charles McDonald will be back on Thursday as we preview week 7. Oh my God, week 7 already. But I am Nate Tice. You can find me at Nate_Tice. That is Matt Harmon. Where can they find you, Matt? What are you working on this week as well?
Yeah, Matt Harmon _BYB. We'll be together tomorrow in the fantasy film room. Think we might we talk about good teams today. I think maybe we'll talk about some struggling offenses.
I love you. Thank you.
Yeah.
I have more fun with that sometimes than the good.
Perfect. I don't know why. We'll decide which teams we want to hit on, because there's a lot of teams that are struggling right now. There's some bad teams.
That Charles and I were kind of talking about this. There's just like a lot of bad teams right now, like more than usual. It's just a lot of teams are like, this ain't working. So
a lot of tough watches, but other than that, just hosting the pod every day and charting the routes, man. A lot of wide receiver news, so I will be busy
hosting the pod every day. Matt is working his tail off over there. We also take your mailbag questions. We got to some last week. We're going to start trying to answer one a show, and I'll try and get one on Thursday. But send those questions to football301mailbag@yahoosports.com. Those emails are great. We got some voicemails last show. That was a lot of fun. Make sure to subscribe to us, follow us, rate us. Pretty please. Also watch us on YouTube on the Yahoo Sports YouTube channel, or follow Yahoo Sports on Snapchat if you're into that. Thank you to Brett Stone Adi. Thank you to Matt for joining me. Thank you all for listening. See you guys next time.